In the San Bernardino aftermath, for the first time since 1920, the New York Times has run an op-ed on its front page. This is important because the editorial page of the Times reflects the thinking of the anti-gun Democrat left. And what was the theme of the Times' most important message in nearly 100 years? In 2 words, gun confiscation. The Times states, "It is past time to stop talking about halting the spread of firearms and instead to reduce their number drastically, eliminating some large categories of weapons and ammunition. It fails to mention that the public doesn't want weapons eliminated and gun ownership restricted, and that sales of guns skyrocket after incidents like the one in San Bernardino, California. With each incident, it becomes more obvious that the greatest places of danger are gun-free zones." GOA Director of Communications Eric Pratt said that if we learned anything from the Paris shootings in November, where the gun laws are much stricter than they are in California, it is that prohibiting good people from possessing guns does not stop criminals and terrorists from getting their hands on them. Massacres like the one we saw recently in Paris are incredibly severe when no one except the shooters is armed. In fact, Europeans now are questioning that policy. A recent headline reading, "Islamic invasion pulls trigger. Europe now scrambles for guns." But the New York Times says there would be no grandfather clause for millions of firearms people currently own, stating that the gun ban, quote, would require Americans who own these kinds of weapons to give them up for the good of their fellow citizens. This is full-blown confiscation. The gun grabbers at the New York Times have finally come out of the closet. Ironically, the editors at the Washington Post are furious with the Times for letting the cat out of the bag. They called the Times editorial predictably polarizing. But as one insightful journalist noted, the Post editors are only upset because the Times piece confirms, quote, every gun owner's worst fear, namely that all the talk about gun safety and reducing gun violence is just a sham, and the real agenda of the gun control movement is total confiscation. The Times concludes that it is not necessary to debate the peculiar wording of the Second Amendment. No right is unlimited and immune from reasonable regulation. But that's the point of the amendment, to protect Americans from a capricious government that would take away rights to further its own agenda. And that's exactly why Gun Owners of America exists and has been fighting to preserve our Second Amendment rights for decades. To learn more about your Second Amendment rights and the latest assaults on the Second Amendment, plus what you can do to help, visit Gun Owners of America's website at gunowners.org.